With the dropping of the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the United States to end World War II, other countries realized the power of these weapons and started to create them and test them in certain colonies that they owned over the Pacific and Atlantic. One other major superpower, the Soviet Union, started constructing and testing their own atom bombs. This caused a rapid increase of production of these atom bombs by both the US and the USSR. This is known as the start to the Cold War. A 45-year period that involved no fighting, involving proxy wars, where both countries would supply other countries to fight to show who's boss. Sometimes atom bombs were dropped near large populations, which caused radiation poisoning sometimes, usually by the USSR. This caused a rapid protest expansion, which started hippies and many other things. One time during this 45-year time period, the US country felt very threatened because the Soviet Union was supplying Cuba, an island nation right under the United States, with nuclear bombs,
my fellow citizens.
which were in proximity
government,
to Washington, D.C.
has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. Only last Thursday, as evidence of this rapid offensive buildup was already in my hand, Soviet Foreign Minister Gromyko told me in my office that he was instructed to make it clear once again, as he said,
this problem was solved when many countries that owned nuclear weapons met up and signed a peace treaty so they could not launch nuclear weapons under certain circumstances.
If this treaty fails, it will not be our doing. And even if it fails, we shall not regret that we have made this clear and honorable national commitment to the cause of man's survival. For under this treaty, we can and must still keep our vigil in defense of freedom. But this treaty need not fail. This small step toward safety can be followed by others, longer and less limited, if also harder in the taking. With our courage and understanding enlarged by this achievement, let us press onward in quest of man's essential desire for peace. As President of the United States, and with the advice and consent of the Senate, I now sign the instruments of ratification of this treaty.
Certain countries that signed the treaty were the United States, the Soviet Union, and the United Kingdom. Some of the agreements that these countries came to was that they cannot test nuclear weapons underwater to hurt wildlife. Some other things that were banned testing
10
nuclear
seconds to
weapons in
collapse.
the atmosphere to not hurt bird life, and in outer space so countries could still explore mysterious realms.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
Although, we're still allowed to test nuclear weapons underground because there's nothing to hurt down there. These rules were put in place to not hurt wildlife and human beings with such deadly bombs like this one, known as Castle Bravo, dropped by the US. And this one, Tsar Bomba, dropped by the USSR. What can we say about this treaty? Did it help people short term? Yes, people did not have to live in a world of fear of nuclear bombs being dropped on them any second. This also improved relations between the US and the USSR. Did this help people long term? No. Because nations like North Korea today are threatening this treaty by breaking the independence since their country was not around to sign this when they had nuclear bombs.
Explosive nuclear weapons testing in the 21st century is North Korea, but it's one of a number of countries which haven't signed or ratified the 20-year-old UN agreement to stop testing nuclear bombs. Friday's most recent nuclear test, its biggest so far, was celebrated by North Korea and condemned across the world. UN sanctions are imposed on North Korea for its nuclear and missile programs. Between 1945 and 1996, there were more than 2,000 nuclear tests worldwide. The first test explosion was by the US in 1945. The Soviet Union began testing after that, then the United Kingdom in the 1950s, and France and China in the 60s. India and Pakistan last tested their nuclear weapons in 1998.
United States government now.
Scientific understanding of radiation damage has improved over time, and it's now well known that even small amounts of radiation exposure can cause cancer, as well as enormous environmental damage. Up to 500,000 people have died from radiation-associated cancers as a result of nuclear testing. In 1996, 44 countries who had or were researching nuclear weapons met to discuss a UN ban on nuclear tests. Of the 44, 36 have signed and ratified a comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty. Another 5 countries, China, Egypt, Iran, Israel and the US, have signed up to but haven't ratified the agreement. The final 3, India, Pakistan and North Korea, have never signed. The Arms Control Association says armies worldwide have about 15,000 nuclear warheads. A large proportion of them are in the 8 countries who haven't signed or ratified the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Organizations pushing for a ban on nuclear test explosions say they're hopeful others will sign up. The treaty is not legally binding until they do.
The treaty is nearly universal. Unfortunately, one can consider that the treaty is being held hostage by the 8 remaining countries which ratification is necessary under the Annex 2 of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty for its entry into force.
The US and China have begun what's called subcritical testing, using computer simulations in a contained rather than explosive reaction to check their nuclear weapons. The development in technology prevents damage to the environment and reduces the risk to life. 20 years since global powers agreed nuclear weapons testing needs to stop.